the half-shell hero isn't hiding anymore. Here's your look at the NECA Toys Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Last Ronin Unarmed version. Who is the last Ronin? In a future battle-ravaged New York City, a lone surviving turtle embarks on a seemingly hopeless mission seeking justice for the family he lost. From legendary TMNT co-creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird comes the final story of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 decades in the making. What terrible events destroyed his family and left New York City a crumbling post-apocalyptic nightmare? All will be revealed in this climactic Turtles tale that sees longtime friends becoming enemies and new allies emerging in the most unexpected places. Can the surviving turtle triumph? Now, before we get this review underway for the last Ronin Unarmored version, I'd like to first thank the folks over at NECA Toys that did provide this sample that we're about to have a look at. I'll also bring in the other earlier looked at Ronin for comparison's sake, but first let's grab the old tape measure as we always do to see how tall the figure stands. With this head in place, this version of Ronin stands 6.5 inches in height, or the figure is going to be about 16.5 centimeters tall. And, as promised, we're going to slide over the unarmored version of Ronin and bring in the earlier Ronin that we've already had a look at here on this channel. I'll tell you right off the bat, I actually like this version of Ronin a little bit more. It just seems a little more personality going for him. But I do appreciate the fact that in this case, NECA Toys did give us, in fact, 2 versions of Ronin that we could put on the shelf. As for accessories, once again, Ronin does pretty good for himself with the amount of stuff that NECA packs along with the figure. First, let's have a look at Splinter's journal, and while it's not a book that I can actually open up, I like the way it's been sculpted and bound nicely in burgundy with a back spine, of course, here in gold. Again, it doesn't open up. You can't open up and reveal the pages inside, but I do appreciate the fact they took the time to include Splinter's journal to go along with the journey here for the last turtle. Even though I did give it away at the other review I did of Ronin, I'm not going to tell anybody who the last Ronin is, although I'm sure many of you will mention it down below in the comments section. It's not the turtle, if you haven't read it, that you would expect. Going to put that to the side now. Everybody's going to say it down below in the comments section. Please don't. Okay, the comic's been around for a while. The other thing that the figure also comes included with as well, and I'm not a big fan of these. The figure comes with these throwing knives, and you get 4 of them, which is fine and good, and they do have the means to attach into at least one of the hands that I can see. With the defaulted hand, or I think this may have been one of the hands I swapped out to close fist, you can see, or maybe see, that there's a little slot here to the top, that you can then take one of the throwing knives and plug it in place. Not so much plugging in place, you're basically just forcing it into that slot, and he does have the means to hold it, but I would almost just say I would have enjoyed rather if they included a hand that already had the knife built in. So just because these are the things that I'm most likely to lose. I mean, let's face facts. There's 4 of these. They're tiny, they're small, they're silver, so at least they'll stand out if you drop them on a dark carpet, but still, I'm sure you're going to be losing these. I would have rather if they could have found the way to actually put little slots in between the fingers, so he could have actually looked like he was holding a couple of knives that way instead. We're going to slide those out of the way because I know I'm going to lose them. Take that out of his hand. While we're certainly on the topic of hands, the figure also comes include the series of interchangeable ones. Now, he does have, again, just closed fist for right now, but you can easily then swap them out with gripping hands for holding, again, the broken sword, for holding the sai, for holding the nunchuck. Choose which weapon you'd like to wield with Ronin's hands. Again, he comes with gripping hands for that. The figure also comes with a pair of, well, again, meditation hands or relaxed hands. Again, nicely sculpted in the case in both. And the figure also comes included with this hand as well, which actually at the beginning of the review, for a segue then into the sai, I ended up having the sai resting against this. And I got to say, like, it works well for the sai to hold it with this hand here, if that's an option you wanted to go with. I guess while we're certainly on the topic of that, the figure also comes included with the sai. Only one sai. In fact, he actually only just has one weapon from each of the respected turtles. And in Raph's case, he only has one single sai. There's compartment space, at least on the Ronin, that you can store these away if you don't decide to put them into his hands. Put that aside. The figure also comes included with a broken katana. Unfortunately broken on the end. Not sharp, at least to the touch, and I can draw blood. It's nicely painted, at least what's left of the blade in silver. I got a little bit of silver here around the gold area of the guard, but other than that, it's okay. The hilt itself, nicely handled here in brown. and the gold on the end of the hilt matches that of the guard. It's a nice looking sword, what's left of it at least. The figure also comes included with nunchuck, or a single nunchuck, connected at least by the two with a chain in the middle, a real chain. I'm glad to see they did that. Again, nicely colored here in the dark, more chestnut brown. Got some more gunmetal kind of gray at the top there. And again, a real chain connecting the two together. Nice touch. The figure also comes included with a metal futuristic tumpha. Not really the tumphas that we're used to seeing, but again, the original Ronin that we also had a look at, I think also came included with the same tumpha. Put that to the side. One nice touch as a reference to the comic, the figure also comes included with a Mauser. Different of a Mauser, of course, than we're used to seeing, and it doesn't have any poseability or all to it. I thought, for example, like the head may have rotated, but not the case. And while it's nicely painted, you can see on the side it does say was that M112 panel lined well. It's got some little bit of color there also on the sides. It's a nice looking Mauser. I just wish something could have moved on it. It's just a staction piece. The figure then finally comes included, I guess one thing we can do before we get down to the head sculpt, because I want to talk a little bit about that. There are compartment spaces located around the belt area of the Ronin. So again, like, depending on where you want to put it, I like to put the sword, the broken sword, at least holstered from the front. Then there's a large enough section here to the back to store the nunchuck, so you can put that also in the back. And then there's also a section here to, of course, store the sai. The only place that really isn't having a storage place is the tumpha. I mean, I guess you could try to fit it in here, but it's too big almost to hold the nunchuck, but it's too small to hold the tumpha. So you sort of have to display it in the figure's hands. Let's just remove these for right now because I don't want these to get in the way of things. The last thing we'll talk about, obviously, is the alternate head sculpt. And it isn't so much an alternate head sculpt, it's sort of the head sculpt that we started things with if you first took the figure out of his plastic prison. It's more of a closed, somber-looking face with just a very unexpressioned face. In fact, he actually kind of looks like he's in meditation or just really sad. Instead, I decided to swap it out with the more aggressive one at least that would show at least the teeth area of the Ronin. But again, it's a difference between the two. The one thing also with this head sculpt is it does have the part of the bandana that actually sticks up, whereas this one actually does have the more relaxed. Unfortunately, though, here's the problem I had with the figure. When you are removing the head, for example, you remove it first from the ball joint, obviously, but I didn't want to draw your attention to the ball joint itself, that they used a very large joystick ball joint. I feel in a case like this, they probably should have used just a stem socket, just like one of those little posts, as that would have been a lot easier to remove it. You can already see what ended up happening here. Even though I did end up heating this when I initially changed the head out on this one, what ended up happening, though, was when I went to change the head back, unfortunately, the socket, gave way, and this ball joint then popped out of the neck. Now, I'm going to have to probably now heat this up, both in this area. Well, maybe I may not heat the socket of the neck, but I'll try to heat it again, the head, and hope that that's enough to free the peg. Because now, the dumbbell ball joint, which, again, we've got a ball joint on this side, a ball joint on this side, it's just now won't come. I can't remove the head without essentially removing the joint from the neck. And again, just to pop this back into place, you kind of have to rest this against this. I really wish, honestly, that they had not used a ball joint this big. Again, because it's just so much hassle, it seems, to pop this back into place. Again, you can heat this with hot water, but I didn't think once I had this in place, the problem was going to be with the one that attaches to the neck. There we go, pop that back into place. So, I mean, while this may be the head I end up settling with, I actually do like this one as the better of the two. I just wish it was a lot easier to remove the heads, and I do wish that they've used a post instead of a large ball joint. I don't think a ball joint needed to be that big to change the heads out for Ronin. Again, this is what you would have normally started with, and again, for nicely detailed, it is a really good-looking head sculpt. Gives a little more of an aged turtle here with the wrinkles here on the side and the wrinkles on the bottom. And again, then there's this option, but I'm going to have to heat this head again so I can actually get rid of, remove it from the post. Looking at the rest of the figure's body, once again, we'll bring back in the original Ronin so you can see, this one would have worn the robe, and again, like all the detailing done to this one sort of does away with all of it, at least from the waist up. The waist down is pretty consistent, so you'll see it looks like they probably would have used the same mold for at least the belt side down. You've got what is left behind of the jacket. But I guess this isn't so much a jacket, because then, of course, he would have had to remove the top half of it. And you can see in this case, they would have had to tool a brand new body with some really cool looking details done to it. I like the darker color that they would have used. Admittingly, though, the area here of his torso isn't quite the same color that they used for the arms. I don't know if you can actually maybe tell this or not, but it looks like the head and the arms are one shade lighter than the color that he has for his torso. Still, it's nicely detailed. You can see the more darker color of gold that they've used for the front of the shell, and also that they've sculpted the back of the shell in a really dark, rich color of chestnut. They've got the darker color airbrushed in there as well. It does really make for a super detailed looking shell, something that you don't really get the chance to see if you have the original Ronin only. For the figure's articulation, it's going to be exactly the same as the one that we looked at before, looking again at the head sculpt, which once again is unfortunately stuck to the ball joint I've attached it now onto. Head does look up, it looks down. You can also rock it back and forth, and of course you can rotate it all the way around. As for the shoulders, again, the shoulders do rotate. They seem to be on hinge joints, but yet the joints don't really allow me to move it any further past, it seems like, this point here. So about 45 degrees. The figure does also have a double hinge on the elbow, which is nice to see. The hands rotate also all the way around. That's also nice to see. And the figure has an upper torso ball joint, which I think also as well, when we looked at the original Ronin also had the same thing working for him, other than, again, he just would have had the jacket over top of it. As for the figure's legs, because again, these are softer plastic, at least the skirting that he has allows at least the legs a little bit more clearance, a little more leeway. So you can move the legs forward, you can move them back and out. He has a swivel at the top of the thigh. Figure possesses a single hinge only on the knee. The lower leg does not rotate, but at least the feet rotate all the way around. As you can see some nice detailing with the sandals that he's wearing. Hinging up and down on the feet, he also does have an ankle rocker, and he does have pegals on the undersides of his sandals. All in all, not a bad-looking Ronin. I'm a little, unfortunately, bummed out by the fact that they had to use such a large ball joint. Why did they have to use such a large ball joint? I think easily you could accomplish the same goal by just using a single, those more narrow posts that they seem to be using a lot with their NECA figure releases. I don't know why they couldn't have just done the exact same. Like, what's the rule of thumb as to why they have to use a post over a ball joint? Is it because the figure's body is bigger? I don't know. Either way, though, I think it would have been a lot easier from a standpoint of changing out the heads, waving my hands in front of the camera, that they would have just used a post rather than a ball joint. I have successfully changed out the heads, but now I'm going to have a harder time to put the head back in place. Though I do like this one. I think this is my favorite of the two. Of the two figures, though, I still prefer, I think, Armored Ronin, because he just has a lot more detailing done to him. But I like the idea that at least NECA did give us options. Two ways of displaying the last turtle for his last hurrah on the shelf in our collection space. As it always is the case when it comes to these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle releases from the folks over at NECA Toys, I think you get a lot of bang for your buck. I mean, you look at the size of this turtle, the last turtle, and you look at the amount of detail and articulation that they managed to pack into such a large framed turtle, not to mention, once again, all the accessories that they pack along with him for the journey. You get all the souvenirs left behind of the Turtle Fallen Brothers, like the nunchuck, the sai, the broken katana, and a tonfa. The tonfa is the only thing that really, unfortunately, doesn't fit anywhere on the turtle. You can't store away all the weapons of the turtles except for the tonfa, but I think when it comes to displaying him, I may have even displayed it also with the armored version. The tonfa is going to find its way into the grip of this version also as well. The thing that I don't like necessarily is the fact that they included these tiny little bladed knives. Throwing knives for all intents and purposes, but there really isn't a place to properly store it on the turtle's hands, and I think I would have much rather if they had just included a hand that already has the knives built into the fingers. Not only built in between the thumb and the pointer finger, but I think they also could have added slots in between the fingers and just put those knives automatically in there. Because I know without that, these things are going to go right back into the tray, because I know if I don't and I leave them out, they're going to go missing the next time I come back to the studio table here. The other thing, of course, I also would have mentioned, as mentioned already in this review, is changing out the heads. I think when it comes to any turtle release or any NECA release across the board, if they ever have a figure that has an interchangeable head sculpt where the head is included with the figure, they right away do away with the idea of using the ball joint, those larger ball joints, and instead rather just use the cylinder posts. The cylinder posts give you just as much poseability, I feel at least, and it's a lot easier when it comes to any collector trying to change the head sculpts out. I managed to change the head out at least to the more angry or more expression face that we have here in Final Looks, but now trying to get that head back into place, because every single time I remove the head, it ends up popping the ball joint out, not from the head, but actually the neck cavity, where I didn't think that was going to be an issue at all. I'm going to still try to heat this up, see if I have a better success to do it. At the end of the day, I'm only ultimately going to be displaying the figure with this head sculpt anyways. I might just leave it. What do you guys think of the unarmored version of Ronin? And if given the choice, between this one and the armored version that we looked at before. Which do you think is a better looking Ronin? Let me know down below in the comments section. Also as well, I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA Toys that did provide this sample of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the last Ronin Unarmored version, that we could have a look at this review. If you guys enjoyed the video you just finished watching, why not hit it a like? If you guys are enjoying the content you guys are seeing and certainly on board to see more TMNT from NECA Toys, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, and you're also turning on the bell notification. Definitely going to be a lot more videos coming your way, guys. So as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.